All right, buddy. Coming at you, 67 degrees currently. Feels good.
7 degrees. Yeah, I'm in a hoodie and shorts, and if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that is my sweet spot. I'm in Minnesota this week, doing a little father-son trip with Hayden. He's doing hockey camp during the day, and then we're doing some father-son things in the afternoon. The weather has been just absolutely perfection. Been for a rude awakening when I go back to Kansas, but it's beautiful, and it's a beautiful sunny day. Hope you're all having a great start to the week. It is August 7th. It's a Wednesday, and the year is still 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 787.
Yep, that's great, man. I'm having a father-daughter week with my little dog, Maddie. And
Maddie, yep.
Yeah, I'm getting her, she's moving around a little bit. I take her out on treat walks. Like, here's another one.
Oh, how far did she have to go before she gets a treat? I mean,
I space it.
We could possibly use this with athletes.
Yeah, she's got like, I don't know, she'll probably get like a little piece of cheese or something, 7 or 8 on a walk out to the end of the driveway and back. Just getting her moving. Torn ACL, man. She's coming through it hard.
Sometimes I feel like when I can't get athletes to run, that might be the ticket.
Yeah, treat walks or treat runs.
Yeah, treat runs. Yeah, every quarter mile you get a treat, something to get you moving. Yeah, maybe an Oreo.
It's not bad.
Speaking of Oreos, yeah, I mean, I liked before we went grocery shopping before we headed out on Sunday, and I told Hayden he could pick like a couple things for the room. Just kind of live it up this week. Goes back, and his treat that he picked was mint Oreos. And I'll be honest, at first I kind of scoffed as he's young, he's naive, he's not really a seasoned veteran, rookie mistake. And then I had one and it was enlightening. It was exceptional. And I'm not even a mint chocolate chip guy.
I am. That sounds delicious.
I mean, I guess I am, because I had that, and then we went and saw Inside Out 2 the other night, and we had popcorn and Junior Mints.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with me right now, but it was stellar. Also, the movie was fantastic. I'm not sure. Last thing I need is some treat runs when I get back from this trip. But yeah, it was really, really good. So yeah, maybe we'll try some treat runs.
Well, you got to be creative out there.
You do. You have to be creative, and that's kind of our topic today. We'll do a short little power cast. I got a lot of stuff to do today, but want to make sure we knock this out. So, obviously, the theme of the last 2 weeks has been, everybody's been watching the Olympics and all these different sports, which I love the Olympics. I love mainly swimming. I watched the triathlon races, the mixed team relay, which I thought was fantastic. I watched the mile, which was also super cool to watch. And just a lot of events that unfolded. And, we talk about this a lot, and you and I as coaches have frequent back and forth with athletes, right? And a lot of times we get questions, right? Not a lot of times, we get questions daily. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing so much? Why am I not doing, quote unquote, what they think might be enough? I had an athlete, just maybe not from a training specific question, but was commenting about their weekend. They're in training for Ironman Wisconsin, and was just kind of saying, on their Monday morning check-in, hey, I feel pretty good. I don't feel bad. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I was like, well, why would that be a bad thing? Right? That means the load's right. It means the intensity's right. It means you're doing a great job in your sessions. It means you're recovering well. Why would not feeling bad be a bad thing? But I think that's very common, right, with Ironman racing, is people assume you're supposed to feel bad during training, that you're supposed to be shelled all the time, no matter what it is. And so, we have, I might get questions like, why am I swimming? Very frequent. Why am I swimming so much? And it's because we need to develop you, right? As a swimmer. I remember this specific conversation, I think February, that I had with an athlete who was training for their first 70.3 and of course their first full Ironman this year. And they were kind of asking like, hey, why am I doing so much right now? Why am I training so much and swimming so much in February? And it's because, one, we have goals. You have goals. It's my job to get you there. And, you don't train to the distance, and you don't, you train to get better. And if you can handle it, we do more. And they had a great turnout, placed second in their age group in their first 70.3 at Maine a couple weeks ago, and is on track for, I think, a great race at Maryland. But, it's interesting, right? That the perceptions, I think, that again most age group athletes have, that I think I've been having these conversations since the dawn of time in coaching, is speed work, long runs, how long should my rides be, how long should my swims be leading up to races? And we even had this question in the Q&A a couple weeks, or maybe last week. What's the training volume or distances I need to do for each discipline? And I think one of the biggest misconceptions, right, is that volume and distance is dependent on the race distance, right? Like you might be doing a sprint or an Olympic, and why am I swimming over, right, the distance? The same could be said for why am I not running the distance when training for an Ironman, right? I'm not doing these marathon preps in a 5K and a 10K, at the end of a sprint or Olympic. Why am I training over that, right? Or a 70.3. Why am I not running marathons frequently? Or why am I not doing, these super long brick workouts? The swim's only 1.2 miles. Why am I not swimming longer than that? I've got a 2.4 mile swim for the Ironman. Why am I not swimming that or over, right? When I swim over for the swim portions. And I think you get tons of questions like these from athletes, or athletes that talk, I need to do more speed work to get, to be faster, right? I have to do more speed work. And yes, speed work is important. I tend to think hills and tempo is pretty much the extent of what most people should probably get to, depending on where they are in their, how many athlete years they have underneath their belt.
Right.
I was listening to, and we've mentioned this before, right? And I've mentioned this thing last Olympic cycle in the last few years, when you listen to all the top level ITU level coaches talk. Again, ITU level meaning sprint and Olympic distance races. That's it, right? The best athletes in the world. And you listen to most of them, and they're doing the same amount of volume, which I think is also why you see now so many short course athletes being so successful, especially at the 70.3 distance, is because they're doing the same volume in almost the same training. Their intensity is probably not zone 3 as much as race pace might be, or low zone 4 for some 70.3 professionals. For the most part, these ITU athletes, the Taylor Nibbs you see, the Hayden Wilds, the Alex Yees, the Christian Blumenfelds, the Matt Hausers, all the Florida Duffys, all the top level ITU short course sprint and Olympic, right? The stuff that tons of triathletes do a few times a year, right? And for a ride that might take them an hour, less than an hour. And for the best in the world, a 10K that's going to take less than 30 minutes, and a swim that's going to be well under 20. They're swimming 5-6 days a week, well over volume, sometimes swimming 2-a-days. They're doing long rides in the 3 to 5 hour range, easy aerobic, and they're doing runs hour and a half up to 2 hours, right? So they're almost quadrupling, right, what they're doing, which again is why I think they've been so successful recently at going to 70.3, just because the volume's already there. And right, they're doing this volume because they know, just like age groupers know, we're just in a different we're in a different life scenario than they are, is that volume is the safest, best way to get fit, right? But these athletes this is their job, right? Very few of them are married. Even fewer of them have children. Even less of those with married and children have jobs, right? And so their life is totally different, right? And so you have these athletes training over, and then you have athletes training under volume, right? You have athletes that plenty of the professional athletes might say they probably train less than some age groupers. And so as we talk about, and we love to discuss the differences in age group athletes and professional athletes, but also how every single person is different, right? In their development, they might need to bike more, they might need to run more, they might need to swim more. And then you have these conversations with athletes that are like, either at one, it's very, as a coach, right? We have very few conversations where, what, everything feels great right now. I love where we're at. I don't think I'm doing too much. I don't think I'm doing too little. Most athletes have one or two thoughts in one of the three disciplines, which is, why am I doing this much, or why am I not doing enough? And I think managing those emotions, and again, having to be creative with the amount of time that we're allotted each week, not that we can do, but that we can do and adapt to, right? Because most athletes, they might be able to squeeze in 17 or 18 hours a week of training, That doesn't mean that their life is going to allow them to adapt to it, right? You might have an athlete, and let's say I gave you, 16 hours a week to do, and if you had prepped for it, you could do it easily, right? You've got responsibilities, but you don't have kids. You can kind of do your own thing most days. Versus, let's say I gave 16, 17 hours to a guy that works outdoor landscaping all day long, every day in the summer, 5 or 6 days a week. There's no way he'd be able to do that and recover because of his day job, right? So you have to lessen things out. So again, like I think in the day and age where things are publicized and extremes go one into the other, and training philosophies are consumed and adopted to age groupers based on what they see as a fad or a quick flash in the pan. In the professionals, I think it's a good reminder, especially when you look at what's needed and what's necessary, or the two biggest questions each athlete should ask, right? What's needed? What do I need to do, right? Sometimes it's swim more, bike more, run more. And then what is necessary to get there? And that could be, it takes you a longer time to get there. It could be it could be a shorter focus. It could be doing things in blocks. It could be a 10-day cycle versus a 7-day cycle. And it could just be a realization that, you know what, I want to get to this point, right? X, but it might take me a little bit longer. So now the plot to that course might be at Z. And so I think it's just, again, this time of year, Olympics going on, you have all these kind of questions about, and a lot of it's not misinformation. I think it's just a lack of understanding and that you can't copy and paste the professional training to the age group athlete training. But then again, when you get to age group training, it's all very, 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 very different as well.
Well, first of all, I've officially proven that I'm like old school because I'm having a tough time watching the Olympics. I'm not like invested in TV anymore. So when I turn it on, it's through YouTube or YouTube TV or something like that. I never know what the hell's going on. And I'm starting, I'll find something, but it was like 2 days early. I don't know. So I'm not really dialed in. But I think it's interesting, the point you bring up as far as like how, for a shorter Olympic, maybe 70.3, it's like how the advantageousness of kind of dominating the total distance. And you're like, I have a buddy who's been training for Olympics his first Olympic, and I'm trying to help him. And I give him all these ideas and I tell him to hook up with me, and I'll set him a plan, and he kind of hasn't done. But so like every once in a while, I'll be like, you know what? I got an Olympic in 6 weeks. I'm just going to go out this weekend and do the Olympic and see if I can do it. I'm like, no, dude, let's. He goes, I think I can do it, but I just want to feel it. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Great. Yep.
So because I've been telling him all along, I said, I need you to, because he's really worried about the swim. And that's fine. I'm like, you just need to start swimming a lot in the long ways and then get that out of your head. And then same with the bike. He's kind of like, and the bike's not. I go, well, start riding 35, 40 miles, just get that out there. But then I guess is it the inverse of it or whatever when you think about Ironman, the difference in that, right? Because when I'm training for 70.3, I'm definitely, owning the distance. But when I'm training for Ironman, I'm thinking about the accumulation of the distance. And like I've talked about often, I've been trying to swim a lot, but I'm not super long, but I'm starting to feel that groove where I feel like I can, if I swim half of it or something, I'm like, I got this, but frequently getting through it. And I'm getting to the point now where it's interesting how, sometimes like over here, I'm at a lake and I come around the corner, maybe I got 500 yards left to my beach and everything. I used to be like, oh, okay, I got to just suck it up, get down there and go. But now, I'm actually kind of not thinking about being done. I'm enjoying it now. So I know my fitness is going up a little bit. Right. So I just think like sometimes I like to think about creativity and letting out the athlete within. And so like, just for example, swimming yesterday, one of the things that we talk about, obviously how important technique is in swimming. And how that alone can change the game and everything like that. But then we get into these cycles of just constantly clanking our brains about technique every single stroke and thinking about, we talk about how we can kind of see people thinking in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just getting like, right now I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to just swim, right? Because I've been through many camps with you, and we talk about the proper things to do and all that kind of shit. But I'm just trying to let it go now and just swim, because, I've been doing the same thing with running. I just think we get so overly active in our brains and think too much rather than being sort of that primal, instinctual athlete. And, I'm reading this book about mobility and everything, and he talks so much about relaxing. And he says it's impossible to relax unless your brain is relaxed. And I just find that so fascinating, because if you can flow with the rhythm, like if you're just constantly in your head going, okay, left foot out here, right, whatever, it's thinking through everything rather than just kind of letting it flow. And to me, that is one of the biggest keys to training for Ironman. And of course, that's kind of about all I've been racing for a while now. And I've had some clunkers, but I just know that, you talked about I'm not running enough, or I'm not doing this enough, or I'm not doing enough speed work or whatever. But I just find it really advantageous to kind of push yourself a little bit, but really kind of figure out pacing. Long course pacing is just so critical, and getting out there and just enjoying it. It's just so much more. Well, it's easier to train, I think, when you're nice and relaxed and you're kind of flowing with things and you're enjoying the process. So I don't know, man. It's just, I find it interesting because I think that we can lay out the plan and we can support everything, and we can help you figure out ways, but there's a lot the athlete should be doing in the meantime. Like every time I go out, I'm kind of looking for little ways to make things feel easier and stuff like that. So that's the kind of shit that's always on my mind, especially when I'm training and I've got 5 weeks left right now. You got 5 weeks, so you got to figure out some approaches, some strategies,
Well, and most athletes, like, I always like to ask the athlete, why? I'd really like to do this, and this, good that we're not doing right now. And I always ask them, okay, well, why? Well, I just feel like I need it. Okay, why do you feel like you need it? Well, I just see other people doing it. Okay, so that's not need. That's ego feeling threatened. That's a giant difference in what is right for you. And I think that is honestly one of the hardest emotions and mindsets to manage in all levels of racing, right? Because I've got athletes that try to be a one-hit wonder every single day of the week. Every workout's got to be crushed. And then I can tell them to back off, or I can tell them to stop moving stuff, or I can tell them to take things easier, and that, an extra 15 watts isn't going to make or break their race day. But when we have to scale things back every 5 or 6 days because they're all of a sudden super fatigued, like that's where you lose minutes, right? And I think that's again, in the age of social media and Instagram and even podcasts, right? Where you do interviews and, certain, like I was listening to them the day, an age group athlete, and they're talking about, that they ride the bike 15 hours a week. And I was like, in what world do you live in? and then of course they're like, I'm not married, I don't have kids. I'm like, this is the problem.
Still, man,
right? Like that's an insane amount of volume for an age group athlete. And
yeah, but are you going to be able to kind of focus on the course? You know what I mean?
I mean, it's such just interesting to listen to so many different takes of what's the right way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, right, as a coach, you've always got to keep your mind open to that. There's always multiple ways to make an athlete. There's not one way, right? There's multiple ways to make each athlete successful, not just multiple ways to get all athletes to be successful. There's multiple ways to get each athlete to reach a successful finish line and accomplish all of their goals, right? It could be low volume, it could be high volume, it could be, go 2 weeks of high intensity followed by 2 weeks of all easy intensity. It could be the opposite, 2 weeks of easy intensity, 1 week of slamming them. It could be 7-day cycles, could be 10-day cycles, could be, on-demand recovery, could be built-in recovery. There's so, and that's for each individual athlete. And, again, when you ask athletes, especially right in the summer when you got the biggest times of year coming up with, races, that's when people start to doubt things the most. That's when people start to consume and put on, their investigative lens of where am I not doing things right? And then they pick and choose what they think they need based on really insecurity. I've got to be doing more. Why? Well, I don't feel this. And I know it's super hard to think through as an athlete, like, you see all these things, you hear these people, especially, these Facebook groups where everything is usually maxed out. And, I've always and we've discussed this, a ton, is that the loudest people are usually the most insecure. And that also goes with training, right? People post these crazy workouts looking for validation from people when the real point of the session that they did was already validation.
Yeah.
I'm feeling insecure. I'm not feeling like I can do this. I need to go do something irresponsible. And though I did it, and now I'm going to post it. Now I'm going to tell people I did it to look for further validation. What's the point? Like, where are we in meeting the goal? Again, just like we talked about, late last week, it's not each individual session. It's the race. And that's why you see so many athletes leaving their races in training all the time, right? And they're usually the ones that are total prisoners of the moment, where they make, every session is either great or every session is horrific. There's really no in between, right? There's always an emotional debrief, horoscope version of every single session that has to be analyzed and filtered to, was today a success or a failure? And then we have to question what we're doing. And those athletes, I'll just tell you, like, those athletes never seem to get to the level that they're capable of, because they always second guess, they always overanalyze, they probably even over dramatize everything, instead of just, one, understanding what's best for them, right? In a way that only fits them, not because they're special, right? None of us are, we're all special in our own way, but none of us are that special, right? Most of the times we feel like we need something, and the fact of the matter is we probably need something very, very different. We just aren't willing to explore that, whether it's less, whether it's more. And as a coach, like, that's kind of our job, right? Is to explore what we think that we're capable of, right? Doing a variety of different things. And it might work and it might not. But again, that's the beauty of having a coach, is that, as a coach, we take the loss and you take the win. That's coaching, right? Asking any professional coach, they remember all the losses, right? They understand and they remember all of those a lot more than they remember the wins. And as a coach, when your athlete wins, you applaud them. When an athlete might lose or might not have a bad day or a bad race, you take ownership. You know what? We just didn't get it right, and I got to do better next time. But the point is to figure out what works for you specifically, and also be creative, right? And that's something I try to do. You have to have a specific set of, I think, they don't have to be extra soft, because I'm not capable of that sometimes, but of soft skills of, like, hey, like this can't work. I know that I give you the flexibility to move sessions, but this just can't work this way. Right. Or they move a session and then they felt bad, and you have to explain why it felt bad, because a lot of it's also educating. And then, like, I had an athlete who's doing their first Ironman build, and they were just kind of checking in, and they said, hey, just so you're aware, and I don't have a long run this weekend. And, I was like, I know you have 2 long rides this weekend, and then you have a hard run and a PM run on Monday. That's your long run for that little 2 or 3 day block. Because we only look at things on a 7-day block, and you don't see a long run, and you're like, oh, I'm not running long this week. But then you fast forward through Training Peaks 1 week, then you see, the most running you've done in a week all year, and you're like, oh, I guess that makes sense. Again, as we kind of look at things through this lens, again, as it gets us another good example of not obsessing about one workout, and then also not obsessing about what's done in 1 week, but instead what's done in each block, what's done in each cycle, what's done with, in each combination of these cycles that add up to your best possible scenario to be fit for your race. Right. And I think we get so, again, talking about being creative, is I think everyone gets so trapped in and this is where I think so many athletes fail, is they get caught in the Monday through Friday training cycle. They get caught in the Saturday long ride, Sunday long run cycle. They get caught in 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or they get caught up in every Monday has to be a day off, or they caught up in, have to do a brick every Saturday or a brick on. They get so caught up in what they think is the set structure for them. And again, as athletes, I get it, because we're also, and this is me, talking to me right here, total creatures of habit, right? We like predictability. And it's been proven scientifically that predictability is also a great way to allow athletes to be better prepared to do well, right? Predictability is great. It makes you more comfortable. It makes you more relaxed. You know how to be ready and what to be ready for. That usually allows for a better session, right? Knowing you're going to do this, not having to worry about, is lap swim open this day? It's a change of schedule. Oh, I've got to run in the evening here versus what my usual day. It's best for my long rides here. And now it's all swapped. So you do need, as a coach, right, to instill a certain level of predictability, I think, for athletes, because people specifically, but also especially triathletes, we like to know what's coming, right? None of them like surprises. Can you imagine if in Training Peaks, right? Now everyone has the luxury of pre-building every workout, and you don't pre-build one workout and you would have thought you sent the session in Morse code, right? And all of a sudden they couldn't see. They go, "Hey coach, I'm not sure what's going on here, but my workout's not, syncing to Zwift," or, did you mean yes, I meant to, not all sessions need to be pre-built. They just don't. They look pretty, but they don't. So can you imagine if you sent the athlete a workout and they couldn't, I would love this if you didn't know what the workout was until you started it. You didn't see the intervals until you started the workout. You should know it was all blank. You'd have to mainline Xanax for most of these athletes to not be able to, they'd be swimming in CBD oil, trying to to calm down and relax a little bit, and they're just trying to chill out just a smidge. And so I think, again, when you look at each athlete, it's, getting them out of their comfort zone is also crucial, because it also allows them to be creative, which is doing things differently doesn't mean it's wrong. It means you're trying to figure out what works for you. And so if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you keep the same result, then it's on you, right? And as a coach, if you do that, that's also on you. If you don't try to experiment on doing it differently, right, to get a different result, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
Right. And it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of confidence, right? But it also just takes a ton of patience, because as a coach, when you work with an athlete, I think this is also a huge problem, and why it's a struggle for many coaches to do this, is because a lot of athletes, they will sign up for a coach for just one race. So as a coach, you might think, I've only got this one shot. I'm definitely not experimenting. I'm just going to go tried and true with what I know and what I know to do that works the most amount of time, that is, that has the highest likelihood of getting this athlete to be successful on the finish line. They might not know, I might not know, we might not know if it was truly the best thing for us, but I've only got 3 months to work with this athlete, so I don't have time to experiment and guess and think. And so you just do it, and then the athlete stops. And then the sad part is, right, you have this great race, and all of a sudden you just now think that was the best way for me to train. This is the magic bullet for me. This is it. But it probably isn't, right? It's kind of like blindfolding and throwing a dart. You might hit it bullseye, and you might not. And that's why, again, like I think we had this question in the Q&A, early last week from, I think, Emma, was that, the athletes that stick with you longer term, that's why they're always more successful, right? It's because and I see this too, like, you work with an athlete for 3 or 4 months and you put them through a training cycle, and then they want to save a few bucks, so they stop coaching for a little bit, and they come back to you and you look back, all they've been doing is the exact same workouts that you've been giving them, that you gave them before. And they just copy and paste it through. They come back to you because they're not getting better anymore, because just like anything else, your body gets stale, your body gets accustomed, your body needs to change things up, and as a coach, it's a delicate balance between, what do we need to change first and why? Do we need to change first to keep the athlete's attention? Coach, I'm tired of doing this session. When are we going to change it up? And as a coach, you're like, but it keeps working. Like, why do we need to change it if it keeps working? But they have, I think every athlete too has a certain level of, attention span issues. And so as a coach, you try to, like, I think, straddle that line between what's best them physically and what's also keeping them engaged mentally and emotionally. Can we push them another week physically? Sure. They look like they're ready for it. Let's push them another week. But then you read between the lines in Training Peaks comments. Yeah, I just said today just felt like a chore. Well, if I'm disregarding the person's emotional and mental, check-in, then I'm just going to keep giving them work, because I know that the body is responding, the body's handling. We can get on the weekends, but at what cost? Right. So then it's usually, okay, well, let's scale things back. Let's get them re-engaged. Let's do something fun. Let's change it up a little bit. Again, you don't really want to do that as a coach, but you do, because you want to keep them engaged. So there's always this kind of tug of war as a coach, I think, between physically engaged, mentally engaged, emotionally engaged, and kind of, again, the yo-yo of not the fatigue of all those three, right? Even though there is, but the attention span in the engagement, really, of being. And that's why sometimes, not to let the secret out, but sometimes you give the exact same session, just worded differently with a slightly different interval and different rest and intensity interval, and they think they're doing something brand new, and now we're both happy. So there's so many ways to do that, and I think you have to be, the coach has to be expressive and intentional with those, but the athlete does too, right? And a lot of times that's when you can see, if you're a coach, if you're paying attention, that's what you can also see, like, hey, I really like that. Let's do that, because it's hard to not have a closed view sometimes as a coach, because you can be so close to what's going on and how it's going so great, but you could be wrong. And so if you allow that flexibility and you allow that creativity on both ends of this partnership, then you have a much better opportunity to get to the best result.
Well, you said something back there a while that I was going to parlay off of, trying to figure out what works for you. And as you said, it's all different. It depends who the person is. For me, I'm a big proponent of warming up. And I'm just going to tell you, like, how many times I've heard I didn't feel good for the first whatever. But if you have like a swim workout, for example, warm up for 200 to 400 and then go into maybe 24 100s or whatever. And then it's like I get, this thing about, what my shoulder hurts or whatever. I swam yesterday, and I swear to God, my shoulder was bugging me for like I didn't warm up or do anything beforehand, like 1,000 yards. And then for the end of it, I started feeling good. So it's almost like, the workout itself is, it's like we force it, I think, sometimes. I've been riding with power, as I said, a little bit more. I'm actually thinking about giving it up again, because I don't really like pre-built workouts, because if I go out, and it's like, warm up for 20 and then start hitting these intervals, sometimes I'm not ready. So I'll just ride a little bit longer. So if I have the workout in my mind, I just kind of let my body get into it a little bit more and then go for it. You know what I mean? So
just as a heads up,
what?
You can hit in the first interval for your warm up. If you make it 10 minutes, you can select for it to lap on itself, or you have to lap it when you're ready.
Oh, all right. Well, that's fine. But the one thing and maybe you can help me with this too, because the beeping just drives me absolutely insane.
Oh yeah, I keep mine on silent, just
Okay.
like my phone. Yeah, I'm beep averse.
I know. It's just like, what? I have no idea. Like, I just can't mentally handle it because we only have so much mental bandwidth, I feel like, and that's why I think about these races. And we talk about, like, you've talked about an analogy of just like, taking a little money and putting it aside, taking it, and 20 years later or whatever, you look up and you got a nice, pile of nest egg or whatever. I think a race is like that. So I need to build up mental bandwidth for my race. So I don't shell myself consistently. I'm just like, okay, I know this is something I could probably do, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to chunk it in the bank for race day, because to me, that's what it boils down to a lot of times. It's like you talk about me being in the ballpark a lot, and a lot of my athletes are now like really like that theory of, just because, like, how do you know, right? Like you said, you might have a race you train for and you think, that's the magic formula or whatever, but then the next race is not, whatever. So I just think about it like that. And if you're in the ballpark, you got, I'm kind of looking at things going, all right, I feel like I got this pretty good under control. But I know on that day, because of the enormity of everything together, you need, probably it's a different kind of mental bandwidth too than it is in shorter races, right? It's like just keep, grinding versus suck it up for a little while and push through it. Those are all the things that are super interesting to me. And like I was talking about, but my buddy, he's going to go out and do his whole Olympic, probably multiple times before he actually does his Olympic. I'm the opposite of that. I kind of like the mystery of it and the potential of what could happen. Almost like I almost like, think about and hope for a flow state, and how do I find that, because I know I can do it. I've done it many, many times, and I know what it takes and everything like that. I just want to find some kind of rhythm, some kind of mental flow that just really comes out. And it's sort of that, exciting mystery to me a little bit more than knowing that, I can actually, I really don't want to know that, because like if I go too far in training or whatever, or like try something weird like that, then I'm like, shit, I don't know if I can do this in what I hope to do it in because I've seen it. But if you leave it sort of out there as kind of a mystery, I don't know. I think a little bit different like that. But you know how mental an Ironman can be. So
it's all mental. And we can close out here in a second. But I think, and I know that many athletes at every level and at every distance either quit the sport or get so frustrated with the sport because they are still trying to hit the same type of training in the same cycle that they used to that no longer fits.
Yeah.
And that means, you could have done a training cycle where you had everything laid out Monday through Sunday and how you wanted it to look. And you could do it easily. The body was ready, mind was ready, life was ready. Right? You may have had, your life was a certain way, and that made it, to where you could do, check off your box A, B, and C, and that's what led you to this great race. 2 or 3 years later, life's different. You're different. Your needs are different. Your life demands are different. So you can no longer fit this schedule into your life, but you continue to try, and you continue to get frustrated, and you continue to get overwhelmed, and you continue to get sidetracked, and you continue to quit. I just can't do anymore. Yes, you can. You can turn a 7-day week into a 4-day week. You could stop a 7-day cycle and turn it into a 14-day cycle, right? You can change things up. There are so many ways, but again, we think when we have this one good result, it's because it's one block that we did, right? Just like the one session we did all of a sudden makes us stronger. Coach, I went to the gym last week. I did a couple of workouts, and I'm telling you, I can already feel it in my run.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. I'm telling you, I feel stronger. If it was that easy, we'd all be in the Olympics. if you could tell after one session. So we chase that feeling, we chase that dynamic schedule, but we keep going back to, well, this worked here and this worked then and this worked here. Well, we can't make that work anymore because your needs are different, your life is different. So now we kind of have to work it from scratch and be okay with that. And again, most athletes just they won't do that. They keep trying to fit in, an 18-hour week into a 10-hour week that they're available to do. Or they keep trying to do a long run or a long ride on a day that they can't do it anymore. And they're used to doing this each week, but now they can't, and they can't fathom how they can do it every other week or do it different. Like the best training in the world and the best athletes in the world, coaches in the world, it's all about adaptive and being creative. And again, being able to, I think we've said this before, 80% for me, for most of our coaches, I know me specifically, it's like 80% of what we do is prescribed based on, the scientific literature. 10 to 15%, and I'm probably even closer to 10, is based on the athlete. What's best for them, I think, in their specific situation. And then the other 10%, I make shit up. I'm like, I wonder if this will work. I wonder if this is going to work. I wonder how this works out. I wonder if I put this here and we do this, I wonder how that's going to play out. I just like doing that. And a lot of times it works, sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of times it works. And that's how we get to other, belief systems in how we train, or coaching philosophy, or your own coaching philosophy, right? Is to try this out. But also as a coach, it keeps me incredibly engaged in the process with the athlete. If I was just going to do the same thing every day with every athlete and every single session, I'd get bored to death. I as a coach, I like having the permission from the athlete to be flexible and creative and see what works. And again, it takes a lot of trust in the athletes, a lot of confidence in the athlete to do that. But it's more fun, and I think it's more beneficial for the coach. It's more beneficial for the athlete, and that usually ends up with it being a more beneficial result on race day.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. It's instead of posting your big workout, I think it's important to really believe in the entire training resume and have confidence because of that.
Yep, 100%.
Because it layers up, man.
It does. It layers up. All right, I got to run. I got to do a Zoom call for the online swim school. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and there's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he is available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me specifically, I'm at Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, buddy. Have a great one, man.
All right, dude. See you later, buddy.
See you.